most often, not the flower, but ROWS. We have columns, which I do find with dates, right? Because I need, here's my GL accounts, and here's the balance and the budget for various dates, so you build out this kind of matrix. And then we also have this idea of sheets. Now sheets use sparingly because it will run your reports into the ground. Because what happens is we'll see as I build this out what it does. But we're going to start with the rows replicator. And I'm going to say go out to my GL account table, bring me back every GL account number that you find, but I've added this filter and said only the ones that end in the number 50. I'm just limiting my results so I don't get all 298 GL accounts. I only want a small portion of those. Okay. Everything else in here is just text. In fact, this is actual Excel. So I'm going to add 10,000 to this value. Right? I'm making a reference to that. And I've labeled J6 and I've labeled D7. And I've given them color so we can actually see what they are. When I run this report, here's what happens. It goes out to the database and says, hey, here are all my accounts that end in the number 50. Two things to note. One is that it copies everything in that region. I told it to replicate this row, so it grabs everything in this row. The query, that text, this Excel formula to add 10,000 to that value, and even the formatting over here for J6. So it's duplicating everything in there. It's following this pattern. The other thing to note is D7 is no longer D7, it's D15. Because the second aspect of replication is that it's going to insert these values between the original replicated line, which is number 6, and the next available region. So it just keeps inserting values here. Just like if we went through and said insert, it's all it's doing, it's just pushing information down. So anything below a rows replicator gets pushed down. For this reason, make sure you don't put anything important underneath a rows replicator, like the summary of the report. No one is going to scroll down there to find it, or a chart, or a graph. It's going to get pushed down. So the two key aspects of replication is that it identifies an entire region, this row, and replicates everything in that region, and it inserts that row or that column at the next available spot. I could change my rows to columns. My other replicator. Now when I run this, it replicates this column for each value it finds. And everything to the right of a columns replicator gets pushed to the right. So when we deal with our replicators, we have to think in both a vertical and horizontal space. Because look, I've got my instructions replicating over and over and over again. It's probably not what I wanted, right? That's really hard to read. Change R, change R, change R, change R. That makes no sense. So we need to think of what's in this replicated region. And this is how we're going to create our list and then use those values as filters and other queries. Here's the item number. What's the description of this item number? Here's a GL account. What is the balance of that account? So just like we did here where we made a reference to that and we put it in this replicated region, every value that it, whoops, that changes back to rows. For every GL account it found, it then added 10,000 to it over here because it just moved along with our replicator. That's really what drives JET, is this concept of replication and then referring to that value. And this is why it's very important to identify what is going to be that unique value that identifies this value, because most of the time when we build these reports, we're going to have our unique ID and then we're going to have something calling on it, a bunch of stuff calling on it, in fact. So we need to be able to uniquely identify it. So that's the concept of replication. we can see on page 3-3 an actual definition of replication and the replicator. Replication is the process that JetReports uses in order to create dynamic lists. It involves identifying a region of an Excel worksheet and inserting copies of the region into the worksheet, right? Just what we saw. The replicator, this is a great definition, a replicator is a JetReports query that performs replication. Okay? But again, defining that region, creating a unique list of values, and inserting however many copies it needs, or copies of itself that it needs. Whether it's 5, 10, 20, because this number will change depending on what filters we pass into it. A posting date range might bring back 15 transactions, whereas another one might bring back 135. So it's going to dynamically change our lists here. And we can use patterns, such as call back to that query, add 10,000 to it. We create this pattern. So on 3-4, we've got even more definitions. This stuff I actually like to read because it is kind of important stuff to know. JetReports, the NL function is where we're going to find that replicator. All in one action, the function is able to replicate a region, produce a list of values, and insert a copy. The data function is kind of what's going to call back to the replicator. Data function is another term we're going to understand. We've got our replicators, we've got our data functions. Our data functions are our NFs, our NPs, sometimes our GLs. Right? These are the three other functions that we can use. In fact, we can actually use an NL to call back to another NL, depending on which function we're going to use within there, because we can choose a number of different things. So we call those data functions because they pull back data. And we can use an entire row or an entire column. Like I said, we could do a sheet as well, which will create a new worksheet for each value it finds. So in that example, it would show one sheet for this account, one sheet for that account, one sheet for this account. But the problem with that is, like I said, it's going to slow down your report because it creates all those sheets. It has to run report number 1, then number 2, then number 3, and number 4. So each one of those worksheets has to run independently. So it will run slower as opposed to one big report on one sheet where it just runs the query. So if you can get away with not having to do sheets, it's advisable. It does make it easier to read them. It is beneficial, as long as you don't mind running the report and waiting for it. And we saw within our query that we can put Excel functions, formulas. We'll be able to put in our data functions within that region. So let's take a look at 3-5, our introduction to the NL function. Let's go ahead and open up the NL function and just take a look, make sure everybody's on the same page here. Okay. So it doesn't matter which report you're on, whatever it is you're going to do, we're just going to kind of talk about these types of things. In our what parameter, we actually find a number of different functions in here. Right? This is all our NL function. And I said our replicators are our rows, columns, or sheets, and I can tell these are my replicators because they each say insert a copy, insert a copy, insert a copy. Right? That's what my replicators need to do. They need to insert copies of stuff. But I've got this first, last, sum, count, count unique. We're going to come back to those once we're done talking about the replicator. There's some in here that you will never ever use. I have never used picture or binary text or caption. Link field, never personally used. Some of these you probably will never ever ever use. But they're there because some people need to use them. The ones we use most often are first, sum, count, and count unique. Some of the most common of our data functions that are used. So if I wanted to create a replicator, I'm going to go ahead and choose rows. Now I need to choose the table. Now again, I can scroll down if I wanted to and look for the table that I want, but I don't know where it is, so I'm going to just highlight the search bar and look for vendor. It gives me a smaller section to choose from. I can go down to vendor, double click. Now it's vendor.
I still don't have any tables.
It's a look at your data source settings real quick. Oh, because you have favorites on.
Oh, see. Easy solution.
So up here, you should have the little favorites button at the top. Let's turn that off. We have tables now? Okay. Now, one thing that people often do is they'll scroll down or they'll start typing, amount is what I'm looking for, and they, oh wait, I need to drop this down. You then have to start all over, amount. This isn't, one of my requested things would be predictive text, so I don't have to drop this down. I can just start typing in amount, and just like I would in Google. I would just start finish typing it out for myself.
I had the wrong date in my calendar.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Not getting all the way
I was gonna
there.
say, move your meat, lose your seat. Sorry.
No, I had it in my calendar wrong. I went to go check him out, and you put your little fingerprint there, like, hey, don't forget about tomorrow. I'm like, son of a gun. Well, thank you.
And thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, welcome back. You have a nice glow about you.
Whew, a little frustrated, a little hot. Yes. I apologize for interrupting.
It's quite all right. So I said we could do our little drop down here, or you can use F6 on your keyboard if it's not assigned to something else. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. F6 saves me a little bit of time because I can hit F6 and start typing in. Amount. Well, let's choose my debit amounts with a $sign. Okay. I'm just grabbing whatever it is that I'm interested in. What is this field? I want to bring back this field. And then I can add my filters. Maybe add a state. Again, maybe I don't know what states I have in there, so I can just drop this on down. Oh, my vendors have no states. That's helpful. Thanks. Do I have anything with a city? There we go. So I can choose Casablanca. Back. That's probably make more sense with the bringing back all the vendor numbers. I changed my amount to number in the city of Casablanca. I can add more filters. And again, we discussed this. We can have up to 10 filters in an NL function. Most people can't conceive of, I need to filter on 10 things, this city and this state and this and this and this. Sometimes it does happen. Now, one thing to note is there's this little evaluate function button up here. This evaluate function, if I click it, it'll give me a preview. I have at least one value. But if I have an error, for example, NO period, or without the period, I actually get the error message, invalid field of NO, because I know what the thing is, it's NO. Nope, it's NO period. So I can quickly look at this and say, oh, I've got an invalid field, I need to fix that. So,
I got a message, attempted to read or write protected memory.
Okay.
We don't have rights to read our own data.
But is everybody else having that same problem, or
Are we
just?
supposed to hit okay, or?
No, right now we're just saying, I want to evaluate this function. Are you getting an error message at all?
No.
Okay. So let's go ahead. You are?
The same one he does.
Okay, so let's go ahead and hit OK real quick. Go ahead and hit report.
Oh, unexpected error. That's a long error.
That is. That one is a bugger of a time. So
Where
you're
did you get that error?
Just
That
put
the H, yep.
The H error of
H
that.
result. So some people it's working, some people it's
You
not.
get it, Paul?
Go ahead and hit OK, hit OK. Close down Excel, try and restart it up and see if we get that same issue.
Now it did populate the field that I entered. I mean,
That's weird.
so, although I don't have the drill down function,
Okay.
I do have.
Okay.
Yeah, it populated something here.
Oh.
Yeah, pound value.
Mine's bigger.
Wow.
I hit the down arrow and then I escaped out of it.
Yeah,
That's a big error.
let's not worry about the drill down right now. Let's not touch it.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I don't know if it's set up properly or not. Because that's a specific setting. So we can take a look at that in a sec. So we don't want to touch the drill down. Well, let's get each results error taken care of.
Do I save the file first or file is gone? File is gone.
Well, I might try and recover it.
So just close it. Don't
You
save
can
it.
try and save it.
Yeah,
It doesn't
I
matter. I mean, it was just our mock-up. We're gonna. So let's just open up Excel. Let's try and run any query whatsoever.
How do I do that?
So just go to Jet. Well, actually, put it out here because we don't want to be in row 1 or cell. There we go. Just go to Jet, and let's go to our function wizard, our NL. We're gonna keep it real simple. Type in rows for our what?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow.
Table, do customer,
Let me pass that box over. Oh, yeah.
and for field, do name.
Important. Thank you.
So rows, customer, name.
Just press OK.
Press OK.
Okay, it will work.
All right. We'll just run it real quick, make sure.